welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Actually, we are streaming live also on our YouTube page, the Vegas Take. I like some of the cowards that are commenting on the YouTube page, but yet they don't call in and they're not willing to have a debate. And they want to say, well, I've said some hateful things, and they want to equate what a radio talk show host said about wishing for a school shooting to a guy who called up who was talking about abortion. And I made a comment saying that I wish his mom aborted him. And by the way, for the record, there are many people in this country that believe that abortion is not murder. That is a political opinion of yours. I didn't say that the man should be murdered. I didn't say that his mom should go and shoot him in the head. I said that I wish he was aborted because I don't like dumb people in society. That's why I said that. So if you want to equate that to me with the same thing that the radio host said, in Colorado, then you're a Nimrod. But, you're welcome to call in, and I'll gladly make you sound like a fool on the air. There are other people on our YouTube page that like to make smart-ass comments, but yet they're cowards and they don't want to call in. So I just wanted to make that very, very clear to some of the people that are watching, that are listening, but don't want to call in and don't want to have a debate because they're afraid they're going to look like a moron. So anyway, just wanted to make that very clear. But we are streaming live on YouTube, so you're allowed to make any comments you want about me. You could say you wish I was aborted. That's fine. A lot of people would probably agree with you on that. My mom would probably agree with you on that one, so that's fine. Anyway, so let's talk a little UNLV hoops real quickly. I want to set the scene for you because it was not that long ago that Desiree Reed-Francois, the athletic director at UNLV, announced a new UNLV basketball coach. In fact, she just hired a new football coach, and we had Randall Cunningham on this week to talk about that. So if you're unaware, and I would imagine some of you probably are based on how many people are going to UNLV basketball games these days. Not many. We'll get to that coming up next segment. But anyway, UNLV hired this guy, TJ Otzelberger. And before the hire was made, there were many people that did not know who this guy was, that were casual basketball fans. So she makes the hire, and they fly him in on a helicopter. And he holds his first press conference accepting the UNLV basketball coaching job. He made these statements, and this was a statement that resonated with me. This is a statement that TJ Otzelberger made, the UNLV head basketball coach just hired, in his press conference not that long ago, by the way, a few months ago. Here's what he had to say.
We're approaching the 30th anniversary of the 1990 national championship team. A team that, ironically enough, I watched as a 7th grader up in Wisconsin. The aura around UNLV basketball was electric. The play on the court was rivaled with excitement, and the arena was rocking. We will get that magic back.
He also said that he was going to bring eventually a national championship back to UNLV. Well, I'm glad he brought up Magic, because speaking of Magic, they must have had David Copperfield must have been in the Thomas and Mack Center because he made all the UNLV fans disappear. So I agree with TJ Otzelberger. There was a lot of magic in the Thomas and Mack Center. All the fans were gone. So he has, listen, I'm not blaming TJ Otzelberger for the reason why the fan support is so bad right now. I'm blaming the mistakes that the UNLV athletic department has made over the course of the last decade. I mean, I could go on and on about the mistakes. We'll get to TJ Otzelberger in a second because we only have a few more minutes and then we have to go to break. But make no mistake about it. The reason why the UNLV basketball situation is where it is because of the mistakes of the athletic department. There's no question about that.
Quick John Dingell tweet. Trump's entire criminal operation.
Wait, why are you bringing up John Dingell? We're talking UNLV.
Trump's entire criminal operation is
you could not have picked a worse time
of
to
collapsing, and honestly, there is not enough popcorn in the world.
Why don't we just talk about what boxers you're wearing right now? I mean, forget about we're talking about UNLV. Why would you say something about John Dingell in the middle of I don't get it. Why? What is wrong with your timing?
Unprovoked.
Were you even listening to
unprovoked.
Were you even listening to the first couple minutes? Like, do you just go through spells where you're looking at your phone? By the way, if you go on YouTube and the stream right now, JD is always looking at his phone. I feel like 90% of the time he's not even listening.
I would say it's more like 23% of the time.
Okay. Well, was that part of the 23% where you just were not listening to anything I was saying about UNLV?
Every single thing you said about UNLV.
You did.
You did. I did.
So why did you bring up that time to talk about Dingell?
You played the audio of TJ Otzelberger talking about how he was a 7th grader in Wisconsin, watching UNLV win a national championship, and then how we're going to talk about UNLV in a couple of minutes.
Is that all you heard?
After the break. That's basically what you said.
That's all you heard.
And then I made it clear that John Dingell has been tweeting negative things about Donald Trump for years.
No, that's fine.
John the Dean Dingell.
What does it have to do with UNLV basketball?
Who wrote a book about being the dean. and being so anti-Republican and so anti-Donald Trump.
So what is the correlation between John Dingell and UNLV basketball and TJ Otzelberger? Hey, listen, I'm curious now. Please tell me. Is there a correlation there?
No.
Well, at least you're honest. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. So you decided to bring that up in the middle of the UNLV segment.
I'm probably going to drop 2 more John Dingell tweets before the show's over.
Why don't you drop some Donald Trump tweets while you're at it? You should do that too, just randomly, right in the middle of a segment. In fact, you should have done that during the Darcy Spears segment. You should have just said, hey, Darcy, hang on a second. I just want to read a Dingell tweet.
No, I decided to wait when we don't have guests, so it won't happen during Babcock. But
Okay,
at some point in the next
Okay.
hour, I'm
Just
going to drop probably 1 or 2 more John Dingell tweets.
Just feel free to interrupt me. It certainly won't.
Just to show you, and just to show our listeners,
It certainly
that-
won't hurt the flow of the show at
that
all.
Donald Trump is absolutely responding.
But please just try to choose the worst possible time to do it. That's all I ask. Please. You did a good job there.
I think
Thank
the
you.
worst possible time would be if we actually had a guest on the line.
Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the crowd at the Thomas and Mack Center last night, what UNLV announced the crowd was, what the real crowd was, my issues with the UNLV basketball program, and why TJ Otzelberger is not getting the job done. We'll talk about that when we come back. You're listening to The Vegas Take.
Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is The Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us on a Thursday, baby. Glad you can be with us. Also streaming live on YouTube at thevegastake.com. We have our Facebook page, The Vegas Take Facebook page. We have our website, The Vegas Take, and of course on Twitter at The Vegas Take, where you can see all of our segments, or I should say hear and see on YouTube all of our segments. So check it out. We are everywhere. And speaking of everywhere, I think UNLV basketball fans were everywhere except in the Thomas and Mack Center last night. Here's exactly what I'm talking about. And by the way, we posted a picture of what the Thomas and Mack Center looked last night during the game. So UNLV made the announcement that the crowd last night was 7,023. They played a very below average, even though they have a winning record, a below average West Coast Conference team in Pacific. And UNLV announced the crowd was 7,023. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the picture that we put up there, and I'm not being facetious, I'm being honest. It looked like there were 700 people. That's right, 2 zeros. 700 people in the arena. And I got some information from somebody that is a friend of mine that has a little bit of inside information that told me the turnstiles, under 1,500 people were actually in the arena yesterday during this game. Now, yeah, there's a lot of other things going on in town. Kentucky was in town. I was at that game last night. They played Utah. Utah beat them, by the way. It was a great game at the T-Mobile. But the crowds at UNLV games have been horrible for years. And this might have been, some people are saying it was probably the worst crowd in decades. So the idea that TJ Otzelberger is going to bring the magic back, boy, he's going to need a lot of magicians. Like I said, I think he did bring a lot of magicians in the arena yesterday because a lot of the fans disappeared. And by the way, in case you were wondering, UNLV lost to Pacific yesterday at home. It is another bad loss. It's another terrible loss for UNLV. They are now 4-8 on the season. Yes, that's right. 4-8. And I hear a lot of people making excuses, again, the same excuses they made for TJ Otzelberger. These are the same, for Marvin Menzies. The same excuses they made with Dave Rice. They're all excuses. So let me, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who happens to be a D1 head basketball coach. I'm not going to say who it is because we have a lot of private conversations. But guy's a great coach. I have a lot of friends who are, Division I college basketball coaches that I talk to on a regular basis. So I'm having a conversation with this guy yesterday. And I asked him, I said, what do you make of UNLV fans and defenders of the athletic department and the program this year specifically, the fact that TJ doesn't have the talent? Well, here was his response to me. He said, there's plenty of talent. He said, if Hardy, Hamilton, Mbake, Tillman, and Long transferred today, they'd all have Power Fives. And guess what? He's absolutely right. I'm not saying they have Final Four talent. I'm not even saying that they're a team that has enough talent that would be an NCAA tournament team. What I am saying is they certainly have enough talent where they shouldn't be 4-8. They shouldn't be losing at home to teams like Pacific. They shouldn't be losing on the road to teams like Cal that are not very good. There's enough talent on this team if they are properly coached. UNLV should at the very least be a middle of the road, maybe top 4 teams in the Mountain West Conference. They're not better than San Diego State. They're not better than Utah State. I get that. They should be just as good as Boise. Boise's a decent team, but they're not. They're in the category of Air Force, right? They're in the category of Fresno State. You know, they're not as bad as San Jose State, but they're getting there. So that's the point I'm trying to make. There's no excuses here. He is the highest paid coach in the Mountain West Conference. There is no excuse for losing at home to Pacific. And yes, maybe Ed Graney from the Review-Journal will come out with an article that'll say they did everything but win last night. Maybe he's getting ready for an article in 3 or 4 years that'll say TJ did everything here but win. Maybe Ray Brewer from the Las Vegas Sun is coming out with an article that say, hey, you know, the fans will come. They're doing a good job. They'll come. Everything's okay, everybody. They'll eventually be good. Don't let the 4-8 record fool you. Maybe Ray's getting ready for an article to come out about that. I don't know. But I try to be as honest as I can. I'm not going to always be right. You know I'm opinionated. And, JD, I think this is a subject that we usually do agree on. And it is the fact that TJ Otzelberger, in that press conference, we played some of that audio, where he said when he accepted the job, he was talking about the national championship team. He said, eventually we'll get a national championship. We'll bring the magic back. Well, like I said, the only magic that I've seen is fans disappearing. Maybe David Copperfield was in the building. I don't know. But there are no fans, very few, that are supporting this program right now, and I do not blame them. The only criticism that I've given with fans have been students. To me, there's no excuse for students not going to games and supporting the team. For you to pay your hard-earned money for this product right now, I don't blame you for not going to these games. I'm not going to blame the fans. No, I can't.
And especially if you live in Summerlin.
I can't.
Or if you live 30 minutes away from the stadium. How can you spend, and when you have other options like the Knights games or going to a casino or going to a show or doing anything, going to the Opportunity Village with your family, whatever it is, how can you justify spending money to watch the strolling Rebels score 50 to 60 points against very average competition and in some cases, and actually in most cases, lose the game outright?
JD, I'll add something to this, though. I get what you're saying, but if the product is good, mark my words, fans will drive from Summerlin to see the games.
Well, of course they will.
Yeah.
But right now, that's just not going to happen, and I don't see it happening in the foreseeable future. And you mentioned how they're on the level of Fresno State.
Yeah, they are, right?
No, I would say they're on the level of Northern Arizona right now.
You think they're worse than Fresno?
I think they're much worse.
Well, Fresno's got a really good coach. Hudson is a good coach.
Much worse.
Yeah.
I think that, especially now that they've got disciplinary issues.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Donnie Tillman,
So hold on. Before you give your opinion, explain since you brought it up, because it's a very valid point. Explain what happened.
The prize transfer from last year's class, Donnie Tillman from Utah. He has gotten in trouble twice already this basketball season, along with Bryce Hamilton, which means he may be a bad influence.
Broke team rules.
They didn't start the game yesterday because they violated team rules. What
does that mean, by the way?
And I commend Otzelberger for doing that. But I will say this: if TJ Otzelberger loses, let's say he loses 18 to 20 games this year, which is extremely possible.
It's possible, yeah.
And a couple of these players get in trouble again. I don't think he's going to get fired.
No, impossible.
But if you lose games and you lose control of your team in the process, that is a way to, especially with an athletic director like Francois, and I believe that she is looking for the next step. That's a way to kind of get your ties cut when something like that happens. Let's say the grades, let's say the GPA goes down, because she was talking about how GPA was so important. Let's say GPA goes down, players get in trouble, you're getting blown out at home, and you're having we'll say 1,200 attend a game, but you're lying about it and saying that 7,000 do. Under those circumstances, I think that's kind of a perfect formula where it is possible that TJ Otzelberger could get fired in year one.
Well, here's the reason why they say 7,000, because their reasoning is, well, we had 7,000 paid tickets. That's the announced attendance. We can't help it if people don't show up to the game,
which is even more pathetic.
That's why they say it, though. I'm just telling you that would be their defense.
That means that your product is so bad that 4/5 out of people who purchased tickets refuse to go to your game.
That's a good point. They actually paid for a ticket. They didn't go.
What are you talking about?
They couldn't even give them away for free.
That actually makes you look worse.
What? Okay, so here's my opinion on my concerns right off the bat with TJ. And yes, I do think it's fair that we can criticize the coach for a 4-8 record, losing to teams like Pacific at home. Here's my criticism of a lot of what's going on with the program right now. First of all, what you just mentioned is very valid. concerns with disciplinary issues.
That's a huge issue, Brian.
While I don't know exactly what happened, you could say, is he losing control of the team? Well, time will tell. But putting that aside for a second, let's just talk X's and O's real quick. The offense at South Dakota State was pretty good under T.J. Otzelberger, even though it was a very bad conference. However, again, many coaches that I talk to, they say, listen, if you have one of the best players in the country, which he had over there, who he didn't recruit, anybody's offense is going to look good. What I look at is how is their defense. They never broke the top 200 in defense. That is bad. So you know that he's not a defensive-minded coach, even though he preaches defense. Right. They're not very good defensively.
And we actually made that very, very clear multiple times that his South Dakota State teams were some of the worst defensively in the country.
They were bad.
From day one.
But the reason why they won is because you get bailed out by good offensive players.
And we expected that same thing to translate to UNLV.
So what do they run on offense? Well, first of all, let me just say, when you're averaging in the low 60s and you're UNLV basketball and you have the talent that TJ has, something is wrong. In my personal opinion, it is very similar to the offense that Dave Rice ran, in that high pick-and-roll screens, give the ball to arguably your best playmaker in Amari Hardy, get your big man to set a screen top of the key and just let him create and let three guys watch. And if you don't believe me, and if you don't believe what I am saying, let me ask UNLV fans this specific question. When was the last time, and I go back years now, when was the last time that you saw a UNLV basketball player cut to the basket, some sort of play where he gets an uncontested layup on a backdoor screen, a cut? This is what Air Force runs a lot, right? This is what Utah State, the type of offense they run all the time. When was the last time you saw that? It's non-existent. It doesn't happen. Their offense is surrounded around a high pick-and-roll screen, and God forbid if a defense shows up and they're playing a zone, UNLV, they look like a deer in headlights. They don't know how to create. So the offense is bad. I don't see that getting better anytime soon. But here's what was really concerning about T.J. Otzelberger's comments after the game. He went after their passion. Here's what he said. He said that he wishes he had eligibility. He said he doesn't have eligibility, but he wishes he could dive for loose balls. That's what he said in the press conference yesterday. That is calling his players out.
That is attacking the effort of your players.
That's exactly what he did, JD. And he said, listen, in the future, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he said in the future, we need to find guys that eat, sleep, and breathe basketball. That's what he said yesterday. He said there's two things in life that he really deeply cares about. Everything else he doesn't care about. He said he cares about his family and he cares about basketball. And he wants to recruit guys that eat and sleep basketball. That's all they do. So he's calling out the players that he has. You have players that have disciplinary issues. They're not winning games. Right. It couldn't have gone. JD, let me ask you this: could it have gone any worse the first 12 games?
And he's actually saying that all I care about is basketball. I don't care about grades.
I don't care. Listen. I'm not going to.
But that's how you can take that specific situation.
That doesn't bother me. I'm not taking it that way.
It doesn't bother me either. But it's probably going to bother Desiree Reed-Francois, considering that was a big part of why she hired him.
I'll tell you what's probably bothering Desiree Reed-Francois: the fact that they had like 800 people in the arena yesterday,
or the fact that they had to lie about it.
Well, obviously,
without even realizing that. Okay, fine. Did 5,000 plus alumni pay for it? Sure. But the fact that only a fourth of them showed up is a real problem.
It's a huge problem.
And that's also really bad for the vendors. If I'm a vendor and I'm expecting, because that's how they're sold. They're saying, we've got 8,000 tickets sold for 25 or for all of our home games this year, and you can expect X amount of dollars. Well, there is no way that those vendors are making anywhere that amount of money.
Okay, but keep this in mind. While all this is going on, JD, and you know this, TJ is the highest paid coach in the Mountain West Conference, right?
Which is kind of crazy, especially considering the fact that Mike Miller would have taken the job for half the money and brought in a top 5 recruiting class in 3 weeks.
Listen, I think we were right, but I'm not going to go back in time anymore and say, well, I wish they hired this coach. Yes, I think Francois made a mistake, just like I think she made a mistake with this new football coach, Arroyo. But, what's done is done. What I'm focusing on now is what's happening with the program right now. And you cannot tell me that they are going to win half their games in the Mountain West Conference. I just don't see it happening.
Do you know what their team total is, their win total?
I do not.
I'm guessing it's 6.
No, it was higher than that.
8?
I thought it was 8 or 9.
I would absolutely take the under.
I would have taken the under too.
Mitru Long is out for
4 to 6 weeks.
At least 6 to 8 weeks. At least 6 more weeks. You've got Marvin Coleman, a walk-on, leading your team in rebounds.
Yeah.
You've got players that have disciplinary action. You've got Amari Hardy, who's not shooting very well.
So let me ask the listeners this, and I'll open up the phone lines. Do you think it is fair to criticize T.J. Otzelberger 12 games into his tenure What do you make of the lack of fan support for UNLV games right now? Are you interested in going to UNLV basketball games? Do you think Jerry Tarkanian would roll around in his grave if he saw what the Thomas and Mack looked like yesterday? I want to talk to you true fans out there. Are you supporting the program, or do you refuse to support the program? I want to know your reasons why for that. I will open up the phone lines. This number is 702-257-5396. Again, that number if you want to be a part of this conversation, 257-5396. UNLV losing to Pacific yesterday. Bad loss. They've had plenty of bad losses thus far in the season. They play a really bad NEC conference school in Robert Morris on Saturday. I do expect them to win that game. But what are your expectations, and is it fair? Is it truly fair to criticize a new coach in TJ Otzelberger just 12 games into the season? I say absolutely it is, especially when you are the top paid coach in the Mountain West Conference. The UNLV program has made a lot of mistakes over the years, and I'm talking about the athletic department in general. I think it started with allowing Lon Kruger to leave. And I like Jim Livengood, but I'm pretty sure even he would admit, well, you know what, we probably should have kept Lon Kruger. That was a big mistake. It was a big mistake letting him go. Then they hired Dave Rice, a guy that had never been a head coach before. Obviously, that didn't work. And then I think the seventh guy on the list was Marvin Menzies. Now, make no mistake about it, Beard would have been a fantastic hire here. It was a hire, and that wasn't UNLV's fault. You know, that absolutely was not UNLV's fault. That arguably probably would have been the best hire they had made in decades, right? That would have been fantastic. But when you look at the Thomas and Mack Center yesterday, and you see the lack of fan support, and by the way, this isn't just one game. I mean, the crowd was really bad yesterday, but this isn't just one game. This has been going on for years. Have you been, I would argue the last several years this has been going on where nobody is in the Thomas and Mack Center. And, you know, all due respect to TJ, he's not getting it done. Even though we're only 12 games in, is there any reasonable person out there that thinks that he's going to turn this thing around this year? You can make the argument for next year. They get Jenkins. You can make the argument year 3, and I think year 3 is the real key year for him in his contract because he's going to have his own players in year 3. These will not be any of Marvin Menzies' guys. There are literally no excuses. I think they'll be a little better next year, but you know.
Actually, I think that next year they may have an issue because Hardy is not a natural distributor. He doesn't like to pass the ball. David Jenkins didn't exactly average a lot of assists. These guys are both big-time scorers, and they're undersized. They could have issues with who takes those shots next year. There could be an ego problem next year with those two guards. And if Donnie Tillman, let's say he gets himself kicked out of school this year, I mean that's a big athletic liability that you have next year as well. So I think that you're probably jumping the gun too early by saying that there's a guaranteed improvement next year. I think at this point, from what I've seen,
well, I think they'll be better next year.
That's not the case.
You don't think so with Jenkins playing the 2 and Amari Hardy playing the 1? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you're right. I'm just saying I would assume that you get this kid Jenkins in there, they're going to be better.
I'm not sure there's going to be enough shots to go around.
All right. I mean, fine, fair enough. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just my opinion is how could they be worse? You know, with Jenkins coming back. I don't know. Number to call 257-5396, 702-257-5396. We're talking about the UNLV basketball program. We're talking about the sparse crowd yesterday at the Thomas and Mack Center, for lack of a better term. It looked like there were 700 people in the arena, yet they're saying there were 7,000 people there. That is absolutely, positively, 100% not the case. We're talking about the loss last night, and we're talking about the future of TJ Otzelberger.
It's false advertising, and it's embarrassing. It is literally embarrassing to make a statement like that.
And if I'm Desiree Reed-Francois, she has to own this, at least early in the season. Is there a chance that he can turn this thing around this year? Yeah, of course. I suppose there's a chance. I don't see anything from this team that would lead me to believe that they are going to improve drastically and they are going to compete in the Mountain West Conference. I don't see anything, and I mean anything, that would show me any improvement. And I like some of the members of his coaching staff, too. I like Kevin Kruger. Obviously, his father is a legend and turned this program around here in Lon Kruger. I like some of his assistant coaches, just like when Dave Rice was here. I loved Ryan Miller. I love Todd Simon. Todd's doing a fantastic job over there at Southern Utah now. Ryan Miller is doing a fantastic job as an assistant coach at TCU. Again, that number to call is 257-5396. Let's take your calls, your thoughts on UNLV, and let's start off with AJ. AJ, thank you for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, AJ?
Yeah, I just wanted to say next year for UNLV basketball, I think they're ranked around 160th, 170th in Ken Palm. I think they'll at least double their ranking for next year because you got David Jenkins coming in.
Right.
And then the other guy no one talks about is Moses Wood. He's essentially a college version of
Right.
Gordon Hayward. So, I mean, you got those two guys. When those two guys alone are going to be pretty big. Jalen Martinez is coming in. He'll play probably 10, 15 minutes a game.
I agree. I agree, AJ, but my concerns will still be the same, and that is coaching. TJ is not a defensive-minded coach. I don't like what I'm seeing offensively from them. Yeah, he's going to get better players, and I agree with you. I think they'll be better next year. But, you know, what is the bar for UNLV basketball? It should be, and by the way, Francois has said this, we should be competing for a Mountain West Conference title every year, just like when Lon Kruger was here. We should be getting into the NCAA tournament, if not every year, every other year, and winning games in March. And I'm not confident, AJ, while I agree with you that they're probably going to be better next year just from a talent standpoint, you've still got some pretty good players on this team this year. So you understand where I'm coming from, I would imagine, with my concerns. Would you agree with that?
Honestly, I think they're pretty limited this year. Outside of Amari Hardy and Donnie Tillman, I think man for man is pretty much the same as Marvin Menzies' first team, with Hardy and then Tillman being the tiebreaker.
All right, so let me ask you this. If we're going to be talking about talent, let me ask you this question. And again, I was talking to a few college coaches yesterday. It doesn't mean they're right, but they said that Hardy, Hamilton, Mbake, Tillman, and even Long, if they transferred right now, assuming they're all healthy, they'd be going to Power Fives. Do you disagree with that?
Trying to think with Micho Long, I'd be kind of skeptical about him going back to the Power 5 level.
All right.
He didn't exactly.
Fair enough. And I'm not a big fan of Long either, and I agree with you. But at least 4 out of 5 would be going to Power 5s. Do you think that that's not on the coach, that they are 4 and 8, that they're losing to Pacific at home?
As far as the Pacific goes, I mean, yeah, it was a bad loss. But, I mean, even then, outside of Hardy and Tillman and Baca, Jong, and Hamilton, I mean, they pretty much got nothing. And, I mean, you can't win with just 4 players.
No, and listen, I understand where you're coming from. I didn't say you can't expect to win with 4 players, but I think you can expect to compete in the Mountain West Conference. And by the way, they have more than 4 players. I'm just saying they have at least 4 or 5 guys that if they transferred today, they would be going to Power 5s. That's the point I'm trying to make. And I think if you can't, and I respect your opinion and I appreciate the call, but if you can't look at this program now and say that there are some concerns, then I think you're drinking the Kool-Aid. That is just my personal opinion. I appreciate your phone call. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to TMZ Sports' very own Mike Babcock. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Tape.